The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline, of Phoenix Suns podcast, back after a short little break post-trade deadline, and now the Suns are on a break themselves. My name is Mike, here with Sam. How you doing, Sam?
Mike, Kevin Durant became the 8th player in NBA history with 30,000 points this week. I think that's a good place to start. But I want to ask you, do you think we're going to reach 30,000 episodes of this podcast? And if we do,
No.
What year would you say that would be in? How many do we have
see.
to go? What are we at right now? What does the Spotify page tell you?
I don't have it in front of me, but we've done 7 seasons, approximately 45 to 50 episodes a year, so 300 something.
Yeah, I want to say at
probably.
least, I want to say we're closing in on like 400 or 500.
Yeah. If you include Patreon, yeah, we're probably in the 400s. Yeah, for sure. So that would take us a long time, considering how long we've been doing this. A surprisingly long time for us already doing this podcast.
30,000 is a really high number, being my point. And that's how many points Kevin Durant has. Unfortunately, not the greatest week for Suns basketball. But I would just echo another congratulations to Kevin Durant on what is an incredible achievement. And yeah, I think we could hit 30,000 episodes. I think what it would take is there needs to be like an AI trained on both of our voices that just releases a procedurally generated episode like every day for the next 30,000 days. I think you could hit it eventually if you did something like that. I don't want to give, any tech oligarchs too many ideas, but I do think
Honestly,
think something like that might be on the way.
The way the rest of the season is going, we might have to look into that ourselves. I think you and I try to figure out that technology, because it's not been a fun last few games for the Suns. And you're right, Kevin Durant being and doing it in a loss really sucks, but like being the bright spot and hitting that milestone in a way that, so few players have done in NBA history. And it was a cool moment, I think, online in particular and on TV, everyone's celebrating his career and seeing all the clips from all the teams he's been on throughout his career, the breakdown of points, the amount of points that he had on the Thunder compared to every other team is insane.
Yes,
it was like
17,000 on the Thunder. What was it? Like another 7,000 on the Warriors.
Yeah.
3,700 on the Nets. And 30...
He's only a few hundred points behind for the Suns.
Yeah, 3,400 and counting for the Suns. We'll see where he finishes this season and then beyond. That's a conversation I think we're going to have on this episode today. But, regardless, not to take anything away from what is an incredible achievement, only slightly annoying part about it was he got it on a free throw. And there's nothing you can do.
Nothing to highlight, yeah.
There's nothing you can do to control that. But obviously, this is kind of like... It's the totality of the players on this roster. Really, it's Kevin Durant plus Devin Booker is the reason we called ethical hoops. But Kevin Durant being a very big part of that. And you wanted points number 29, 999, and 30,000 realistically to be on a pull-up Hezi Jimbo. If it could have been a meet me at the elbow type jumper, that would have been truly emblematic of the KD experience. But we'll take the free throw. It's 2 points.
Yeah, LeBron, when he got to the highest scoring total, him hitting that sort of fadeaway at the free throw line was classic in his own right, and KD didn't get that moment. But hey, he still gets to add on to that number throughout his career, and we'll see how high it gets. He's climbing.
I'm steering us.
I'm scoring role.
I have to steer us way off already. Our outline, but you saw the quote from Book. About how KD approaches the game.
Do you have it in front of you?
No, I don't. I'll have to find it. But where he, God, what does he say? He shits basketball. That's what Booker said about.
He drinks and he shits basketball.
He eats. He sleeps. He breathes. He breathes. That's what it was.
Yeah.
He breathes basketball. He sleeps basketball, and he shits basketball. Is what Devin Booker said about Kevin Durant, which I think is a great quote. I think that's an all-time Book quote, honestly, to the media. You'd have to put it
really good.
Put it in the Mount Rushmore. But there was a great Reddit comment in response to that. Obviously, Reddit eats that shit, no pun intended. They eat that stuff up. And there was a Reddit comment that was calling it the pull-up Hezi Dumpo, which I just thought I had to say out loud to you because it made me laugh, and I was hoping it would make you laugh
I did
too.
not see that, so I appreciate that. That's really funny. Yeah, an incredible career that he's had so far, and I think really weird time for this to happen for him and the Suns. In fact, I'm just throwing our outline off track again because I think we're already on KD. We should continue to talk about it because the Suns almost traded him like a week ago, and like the extent to which the Suns almost traded him. Actually, we learned more about that recently with Shams Charania, who was on ESPN talking about it yesterday, and said that the Warriors thought the deal was done, essentially. And then the last thing they did is check to see if KD was on board, and he wasn't. And that's where it ended. And now I think the entire conversation about the future of Kevin Durant has shifted to what are the Suns going to do what are the Suns going to do to make this team better, to where does KD play next? Because along with what Shams said about that trade essentially almost being done, apparently without KD's knowledge until Steph Curry called him, which is just insane, I think, to even say out loud after how this team has operated for years. But he also mentioned in that same segment that he expects the Suns and KD to work together on a new destination over the summer. Along with that, Windhorst appeared on ESPN as well, essentially said the same exact thing. Just that there was moves that were almost made at the deadline, and now he anticipates the Suns to work with KD to find a new destination for him in the summer, which puts the entire rest of the season in a really weird place, I think, for what's going to happen for the rest of the season. But also for Suns fans, the mindset of what the future of this team has to shift, at least in some way, to can they save this? Do they want to save it? Or does it matter? Like, is this just how it's going to end regardless? But I know that you've known about this or you saw this all online.
Yeah.
Where are you at with this mentally?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think a lot of parties are ready to move on, KD himself included. That doesn't mean that, to again bring us back to that Ramona Shelburne report about the locker room being toxic or whatever. It's been anything but.
It doesn't seem toxic. Yeah.
No, exactly. And I know like the players have publicly pushed back on that, but just in the body language too, like I want to give a shout out to our friend Kai in the Discord actually, who's always at Valley Suns games and just told us like 30 minutes ago before we logged on here, KD's at the Valley Suns game tonight. He doesn't have to do that. I don't think Oso or Tai or I don't think those guys are even playing there tonight, but he's there. He's in Tempe. He's supporting the organization through them. You watch the way he's playing last night, and he knows he's working with so little with regard to, especially his big men, trying to get Nick Richards, trying to get Mason Plumlee the ball, just being really good about trying to involve guys and keep them engaged and, keep their spirits high and high fives all around and that sort of stuff. Like, I believe that KD believes that maybe this thing is coming to an end, like it just hasn't worked.
Hasn't worked.
Yeah, and yet it hasn't affected the professionalism with which he approaches the game. And that's a compliment I've had for Bradley Beal in the past, too. Like, these are guys who frustrated me, quite honestly, at times with, I think this team, I'm not putting it on any one player, but I think the team has really struggled to find a true heart and soul to it, and to play with sort of the requisite grit that is required of, like, teams that make deep playoff runs. But I don't know. There's superstars or quote unquote stars in the NBA who pout for stupid reasons all the time these days.
Yeah.
And Bradley Beal accepted a bench role and hasn't done that. And KD is playing with guys who are G leaguers and he's not doing that. So, Yusuf Nurkic threw more of a tantrum than either of these two guys.
Bones Highland
he's off the team now.
Asked his way off of the Nuggets.
Yeah.
Right while they were winning at a championship. So yeah, things can happen in weird ways, and they have been, both of those guys, because I think it's fair to put Brad in there too because of the amount of which the Suns tried to trade Brad, even though from Bradley Beal's camp they're saying that they were never approached about a trade, which I maintain would be a lot easier to hide if the situation they have, which is the son of his agent is the CEO of the Suns, so I'm sure those conversations can go pretty well hidden. But yeah, I agree. I think they've both been very, very professional. And look, I think the situation they were in that game was brutal.
In which game?
Just the fact that KD was playing with a bunch of scrubs, basically G League players.
Well, okay, so yeah, that's where I want to go next. Just, I mean, like, look, the fact that a lot of it is injuries, we know that. But also Monte Morris could be playing over Colin Gillespie and Ty Washington, and he's not. And that's a very clear sign that the team is like, okay, we got to start evaluating what we have for the future. Bol is playing 30 minutes now in the last 4 games. Of course, we're going to talk about him more in a little bit. Like, there's a reason that's happening. Yes, part of it is they're just throwing shit at a wall and seeing what sticks, like if they can turn the season around internally. Yeah. But also, Bol is a guy who they have early bird rights now in the summer. And, we could be talking about him for a Josh Okogie type extension, maybe. So there are decisions that they have to make on these guys, and now's the time to do it. Now, I won't entirely 100% rule out this idea that they have a miraculous turnaround and they make the playoffs and they make some noise in the first round and KD says, you know what, I like it here, and they want to bring him back, right? Like, just because something...
Which also I think Windy said, things can always change.
Yeah, just because this is where we're at right now, we're under 500, the vibes are in the gutter, like, doesn't mean that anything is guaranteed to happen in the summer. But if we continue down this path, I think it's definitely fair to say everyone on both sides is kind of just feeling like, look, we tried, it doesn't work. Let's cut our losses.
I think it's important to say that this team not working and trading Kevin Durant is not like a full indictment on Kevin Durant here as well, right?
No.
It's just the situation the Suns are in where he's the oldest player, probably has the right amount of value on the trade market to try to find a way for the team to have assets to try to be competitive. Maybe not even next year, but the year after. Maybe they can #mid now next year, but maybe try to be better after that, or find ways to sustain some sort of longevity with extending Book's time in his prime. And that's not fun to think about, admittedly, but like, that's the asset you have. It's probably the guy who deserves to be traded to a better team at this point of his career the most, because that's KD, that's Kevin Durant. He's got 30,000 points. He controls his future. He deserves to retire on a team that he can retire on. It's not necessarily saying we're trading away the only problem with this team, because there's a bunch of problems with this team. And look, if they find ways to fix it, fine. But I do want to just, at the very least, preliminarily list some teams. I'm sick, so sometimes saying some words is going to be a struggle for me tonight. I do want to list some teams that could be interested in KD this summer right now. Now, we're not going to do fake trades, and I think that's happening a lot in Suns fan circles right now. And you and I have a lot of time to do it, and we'll learn more about teams that could be interested in. But I think from a Suns fan perspective, at least keeping half an eye on some of these teams and seeing some of the guys that are on those teams for the rest of the season it's something that I'm going to be doing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, what else am I going to do this season? If they continue to be, they're out of the play-in race. Like, that's how far outside of the playoff picture they are. And they have the toughest schedule left in the NBA, and there's no guarantee they're going to be healthy for the rest of the season. So I'm going to keep an eye on these teams, I guess. And I have 4 teams, and I'm curious if you're going to add any teams to this. We know the Warriors are out of that because KD is going to say no to that, right? So, and plus, obviously, they have Jimmy Butler now, but who knows how things are going to go for them. But the Warriors are out. Houston, I think, is an obvious one. Mm-hmm. And playing against Houston, I think, really, even though they beat the Suns, which, look, congratulations on beating the Suns that had KD and a bunch of G Leaguers, but they did win. But, seeing in a full game the issues they have with offense and scoring the ball really, to me, highlighted what Kevin Durant could do for that team. It makes a lot of sense for them. And also they could potentially have this sort of compete, try to win now for the next few years era, and still potentially have assets later that they could trade, because KD's not going to command everything from them at this point of his career with 1 year left in his contract. So Houston. Minnesota, it was reported that Minnesota was interested in KD right before the trade deadline. That came out right after we recorded our trade deadline podcast, so we didn't have the opportunity to talk about that. But they have a new owner, first of all. It was just ruled that that team is going to be forced to be sold, basically, to their new owners. And also, Anthony Edwards, KD, they get along. That seems to be something that matters to KD as his career goes along. Dallas apparently called about him we know he's friends with Kyrie Irving. The combination of Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis makes a lot of sense, if I'm being honest, just looking at a team. That sounds pretty good.
I mean,
yeah. Having a big man who's like a star defender behind KD would help him a lot. It would help this team that we have a lot.
That's look, all I'm going to say on that one, if Dallas wants to make that move, okay. I need to look at Dallas's cap sheet because I don't know what's coming our way in that trade. Do you know off the top of your head what other big contracts do they have?
Well, Gafford, you would obviously ask for some Lively, probably.
There needs to be. I think there needs to be a third team in that to make that work. But
they can do it because there's been people making fake trades in our Discord.
Yeah, they've got
for about
Clay,
3 or 4 days.
PJ Washington, Gafford, all in like the 10 to 15 million range. If Dallas wants to do that, they're more than welcome to. I think
not a lot of assets. For
I think that's a big bet on 3 guys who miss a lot of games, and I think that's dangerously close to doing exactly what the Suns just did. But I'm not going to stop them. I'm not going to stop them if they want to do that. They are Nico Harrison is a free man.
Yep, and I don't know. Who knows? They would be good when they're healthy. Lastly, I'm just going to put this team on the table here. The Knicks, if they flame out, I think could be looking for somebody like KD. Don't know that he would be interested in that, but I think there's a version of the Knicks that's kind of interesting. And also, I think there's a version of a trade with the Knicks where the Suns could potentially get 2 players that could help Devin Booker have a pretty good team next year, and both teams would probably remain pretty happy with that.
One of them
they don't have a lot of picks.
Mikal Bridges,
Cat. I mean, you could ask for Cat at that point, right? I don't know if they would do that, but you can ask for Karl-Anthony Towns. We know he's friends with Book. But Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby or one of those Hart. 2 guys. Yeah, and Josh Hart, and you can have a version of the team that has multiple of those guys.
Man, Josh Hart. Yeah. Have you seen his stats this year? I mean, I know he plays literally 1 million minutes per game.
Yeah.
But I guess I didn't realize like his numbers are really good here. He's
averaging. He might
15,
be the best glue guy in the league, right?
He's averaging 15 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists.
The rebounds are insane at his size. Like it genuinely doesn't make sense when you watch him play. Like there's a lot of sneaky rebounds in there where he just finds a way to get to where the ball is bouncing, often without jumping. And
you know what's
just
crazy?
Gets to the ball first.
If I propose, and this is why I won't do this, someone else can do this if they want to. If I went to my social media where I know some Knicks fans follow me, and I suggested to them KD for Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart, maybe other filler to make the money work.
Yeah.
They'd probably tell me to kill myself.
Of course. And I think all of these teams, if they were listening, would get mad. But what they need, and it's what we had, is a flame out in the playoffs, right? Any of these teams completely flame out, or all of them, right? Ideally, if the Suns have to trade KD, they have a market where there's more than one team interested, and KD's interested in more than one team. But if they flame out in the playoffs, that's the scenario where the fan base is more open to it. The general manager who put that team together is probably a little more desperate. And the coach, and I think in the case with Houston, who has been begging for someone who can score the ball regularly in Ime, will probably be pushing for it a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, those are just the 4 teams off the top of my head. Like, we've named some players that exist on each of those teams right now. Obviously, you can go to the trade machine and put them together. And there's no guarantee for all of these. But I do think if the Suns are in a situation where they have to trade KD, which honestly, I think they're staring down the barrel of that no matter what. Whether you love this team or not, that's what they're looking at. Then I think those are 4 teams that I'm going to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, if you're looking at it from the perspective of the team that's trading for KD, you need to have, like, you're going to trade some youth and athleticism to the Suns because that's what the Suns are looking for. And so you're trying to find a situation where you can bring in KD, make your scoring better, and still insulate him with exactly what the Suns don't have right now, which is guys who play fast, guys who are, get up and down, like can defend at multiple positions. And I think, a team like Houston or Minnesota actually has a really good chance of being able to do that. You have a really good chance of insulating him with precisely the right pieces to make it work. Now, if you're Houston...
But what if you get Gobert?
What if you get Gobert?
Would you want that? I'm just saying, yeah.
No, not really.
I don't think the Suns would either. I'm just saying.
If I'm looking at a Minnesota... Well, this is the thing. If I'm looking at a Minnesota package, I want
Naz Reid.
I want Naz Reid, McDaniels, and Dillingham or whatever his name is.
Or DiVincenzo, I think.
Yeah, or DiVincenzo would be a role player who could keep you. I would
if you could trade Brad.
I would try and look for maybe either picks or Dillingham's a rookie, so like just a guy with a little bit higher upside than say a Naz Reid type, who I think is good but never going to be that good. That's kind of what you're looking at in the package. Or if it's Houston, excuse me, it's like, I mean, can you get Eamon Thompson still?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
You don't think so? You don't think they trade Eamon Thompson for Kevin fucking Durant?
No, I don't think they would. Yeah, I don't think they would. Yeah.
Even after they flame out in the playoffs and OKC spanks them. I mean, spanks them 4-0 in the second round. You don't think it's possible?
Maybe, but no, I don't think. I think that's the kind of player you need to play against OKC. Like you don't. I don't think you do it unless you could have both of them on the team. I think Houston would be dumb if they did. If I'm being honest, I don't think they have to.
Yeah, I mean the hope is,
I think they might be willing to trade Şengün, to be honest, I would be relatively okay with that as a Suns fan too, because it would be nice to see a skilled center on this team again. But I'm just saying, I could see why they would want to trade him after watching them play. He's not exactly a foolproof player here. So, I think they can do it in other ways. I think Amen's probably off the table but maybe I'm wrong. I'm just thinking about it from the perspective of Houston, and I would want. That's what I would want. I would want to keep him and KD together. I think that's what makes the team kind of interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We just need someone to be a little bit dumb. Obviously, what you're hoping for is that KD does not entirely control his own destiny and force his way to one destination. Which I think
if he has multiple teams that he's interested in.
I think there's about an 80% chance that he does do that anyway. We'll see.
Yeah,
there will be a bidding war unless KD tells certain specific cities, like Jimmy Butler just did, to fuck off. There's going to be a bidding war for him.
Yeah, the Suns are in a different scenario than the Nets were when he forced his way to Phoenix, in that he's only going to have 1 year left in his contract. So, threatening to keep him is less of a threat to those teams. That's why I think flameouts would be important. I think to raise the value of him being traded there. So it is what it is. Any other thoughts on that?
I guess I'd just go back to, what I think you were getting at some point there in the conversation, that, I mean, KD frustrates me the way he plays sometimes, right? I always think he could be better. I think Book could be better too, but
everyone on this team is frustrating. Yeah. It's the DeAndre Ayton of teams, I think I've described it as.
Yeah, but it's like there was a version of Book and KD post KD trade. There was a version of that team that worked if you nailed all the other moves around them, and they just didn't. And that's kind of,
they don't have assets to do it anymore.
When we look now they definitely can't do it because they've mismanaged the assets so poorly. But at the time, if you time travel back to 2 years ago, I think that's the biggest thing we're going to reflect on is, it was the Beal trade and then the Ayton trade and then everything else that came after that killed them. And I just don't, I can't bring it in me. As frustrating as the past 2 years have been, and as frustrated as I've been with the experience of arguing with KD stands online and whatever, I just can't bring myself to say that they were wrong in taking that gamble. I still think it's something that you do 9 times out of 10.
All right, let's talk about the new starter on the Suns. A guy who started the last 2 games after not playing at all. Is Bud just really trying to find anything at this point? And to be fair, I think he has found something, and I'm talking about Bol, who started the last 2 games, I think somewhat miraculously. I did not expect him to start those games. Real surprise photo when the Suns account posted the starting 5 to see Bol with the starting 5, and that's with KD in a center right there. Well, it was mostly with KD in a center outside of the second half of the last game where they started Bol at center. And he's played well. I think there's Bol problems that you could always point out. Maybe chasing block shots a little too much, unable to defend guys on the perimeter, but not asked too much to do that against the matchups that they had. And maybe a little too shot happy sometimes, but overall, I think he's been a positive on the floor for the Suns. Yeah,
I mean, they need him to take these shots right now.
Especially right now. Yeah,
yeah. In these games without Book, without Beal, he has quickly catapulted to being the second option on the team after playing 0 minutes last week. And yeah, it's pretty remarkable. That coupled with the fact that he's averaging 8 3-point attempts per game in these past 4 games, he's taken them and we need him to. So, credit to him. He continues to have phenomenal touch. I actually think his one-on-one isolation defense has been pretty good. He's still going to make stupid, like team decisions all the time.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the stuff that prevented him from playing in the first place, is cleaning up all of the effort plays and, the box outs and transition defense and stuff that honestly the entire roster struggles with, but him in particular. But I don't know, like when he gets matched up on a single guy and he's just kind of like focusing on his goal is to block this player's shot on the perimeter, he's been pretty good.
It's either a block or a goaltend at that point, right?
But I would certainly take him. I mean, yeah, but it's less likely to be a goaltend than Nick Richards, who every play is a goaltend. And, like he's done a pretty good job of blocking those shots. And yeah, I don't know. They couldn't be doing any worse with any of the wings that they could be playing over him. So shout out to Bol. Would you extend him Josh Okogie style, like I kind of hinted at earlier? Is that the goal here?
It depends on the rest of the season, and the Suns have an opportunity to give him a lot of minutes for the rest of the season. If they're going to try to play bigger, which I'm totally fine with, at least you eliminate one problem, which is size. Look, it doesn't fix all the other problems, but at least we can find other things to complain about in that case, which is, we're going to talk about one of them in a little bit, but Bol, I think, has earned minutes. I think it's been such a weird season just in general for Bud and also just for Bol in particular. And we'll talk a little bit more about Bud in a second, but Bol couldn't buy a single minute and now just starts. That's just an odd situation, I think. And I get it. The Suns are injured and they're trying to find other ways to get guys in and out of the lineup, but like they couldn't find time to give Bol some minutes off the bench to see if some of what's working right now could have worked earlier in the season, and not without cause, because about this time last year, Frank Vogel started doing that with Bol too, and it started working a little bit. There was a long stretch at the end of the season where Bol's minutes worked to the point where we were talking about how excited we were to see him this year.
Wasn't one of our over-unders, that's going to be a funny episode when we end up doing that, by the way, but wasn't one of our over-unders that he would average 10 points a game? 9 points a game? I don't
remember, yeah.
It was like we were anticipating a bump in production, like he was going to ride this momentum from the Vogel era into the Bud era, and I was calling him, I think the 7th man of the year or something coming into the season was the idea. And then, for him to just not play at all was kind of jarring. I assumed that something crazy basically had to be going on behind the scenes where he was just absolutely taking the piss out of the team and just basically not, blowing off teammates, not in an aggressive way, but I was like, for this guy to not be playing.
What's happening? Is he late to every practice or
exactly.
something?
Yeah. He just has to not be treating this like a professional for them to wait this long to give him a chance.
By the way, just off topic, but 7th man of the year is a great idea for a Grant Land era Zach Lowe article.
Yeah, no, it's
where he's just ranking the seventh best player on every team.
Joe Ingles for the 6th year in a row. Joe Ingles is the 7th man of the year. Yeah,
I would have loved that. I would have ate that up. Are you kidding me? I would have read that as soon as it posted. I'm not even joking. I would have been very excited. But yes, Bol finding ways. Look, extension wise, I don't know. Depends on the rest of the season. Fine, if they do, I wouldn't be mad about it. And we'll see if the coach, whoever the coach is next year, finds a way to play him minutes. I'm not sure if that's exactly something that's guaranteed with him at this point, because it just seems like it's not guaranteed with him throughout his entire career so far. But he's still young. What is he, 24 right now?
I think he's 25 at this point. But yeah, he's not old.
So I don't know. And I'm happy to see him on the floor. I'm happy to see him producing. And I think just from a watchability perspective, if they're going to lose, his highlights are pretty sick, man. They're really fun to watch. That dunk that he had, the occasional 3, the shots on really good defense where he just makes fadeaways or crazy layups at the rim. Give me those. I'll take them. I'm going to watch the rest of the games.
The behind the back pass.
Incredible.
The best assist. The best assist I've seen from a Suns player in a long time. Long time.
Play him minutes. I'm not sure what the rest of the season amounts to at this point. I'm genuinely not sure. We have guys openly on ESPN talking about trading the player that is by far the best scorer on the Suns this year. And that's what the rest of the season's probably going to look like, where they're going to have segments on ESPN and TNT talking about which team would be the best fit for KD. That's
vultures.
What the season's going to look like.
It's going to be vultures circling, and the rest of the guys just sort of have to tune out the noise, continue to play their roles. If you're Bol, you're thinking about your next contract, of course.
Yeah.
But the thing is, so the Suns can offer him an extension, not a super long extension because of the early bird restrictions, but or not a super lucrative one either. But no one's going to give him, even if he plays well, I don't think anyone's going to be out here offering Bol $12 million next season.
Nobody gets that amount of money now anyway. That's
exactly.
Just that contract's
you need to
gone.
be a really good player for that.
Yeah.
Now. So, I think there's a real chance that they offer him the 2 or 3 year kind of $7 or $8 million Okogie style extension, where if you need to trade him, flip him for something later, you're still eligible to do that depending on what apron you're in or whatever restrictions you have to follow.
If he earns it, he earns it. Be happy with that. On the other side of that, by size and by play, the fan base has totally turned on Tyus Jones at this point of the season, who's still starting for the Suns. And, as someone who's on the right side of history and saying maybe he shouldn't start months ago, I think it's gone a little too far with the way people talk about him online. But, genuinely probably had his worst game of his career in the last game for the Suns. It was definitely the worst game as far as turnovers. He had 6 turnovers against the Rockets and just has not found his way defensively. Obviously, we knew that defense wasn't going to work. I think the extent to which it hasn't worked with him on the floor is beyond anything I predicted. But offensively, it's really starting to hurt the Suns as well. And it's just at the point now where they really, to me, if they come out of the All-Star break still starting Tyus, I can't defend any decision that the coaching staff is making at that point anymore, because there's just no evidence that points to that being good.
Yeah,
it's bad.
It does feel like if you're making these decisions now about we want to judge players for the future, and so you're playing Bol 30 minutes and you're playing Gillespie and Ty and whatever, you can't be doing that and then also continuing to start Tyus Jones with all of the statistical evidence that we have.
Because the other side of that is Matt Ishbia has not given any indication that he wants to have any era of this team where they're not trying to win. And look, honestly,
Fine.
Houston gets our pick this year too.
But they're not winning.
Tyus isn't helping that either.
Exactly. You would show Matt Ishbia the data that says we are worse with Tyus on the floor by a lot, and also that we're now 3-16 in games where not both of them don't play. If either KD or Book misses a game, the Suns are 3-16. That is terrible. They should be, at least, if they're a serious team, you should be able to miss one of your star players if you're a 2-star team and go 500. Maybe a little under 500. But 3-16, that's the Washington Wizards. Why are they the Washington Wizards? Because, not just because of Tyus, and this is why it's a nuanced conversation, right? But a large reason why you look like the Washington Wizards is because you have last year's starting point guard of the Washington Wizards playing 30 minutes per game in those games, and none of those lineups have a defensive rating lower than 120. He sinks defensively every single lineup he's in. Now, as for the offense, I don't blame Tyus for 6 turnovers yesterday. I just want to say that. This is where KD frustrates me, right? The fact that their entire offense, possession after possession after possession, he walks the ball, Tyus that is, walks the ball up the floor. 15 seconds left on the shot clock already. You've already got 8 or 9 seconds down.
Yeah, we're in 1993 offense, yeah.
Here's the KD mid-post ISO.
Yeah.
The Jimbo.
With the pass from the shortest guy on the floor, which is hard to make a pass to a post player by a short guy. It's just harder.
KD takes a maximum of 2 steps towards him, but obviously doesn't want to come too far out but also has to meet him for the pass. If you don't meet him for the pass, if they're pushing you out to the 3-point line, obviously that's where they want you to be because they know you're not as comfortable out there posting up. But you got to meet the pass, otherwise it's a turnover. And it's just the sheer predictability of the Suns' offense makes me not in a position where I can blame Tyus for that. It's not Tyus' fault that they're asking him on offense to literally do nothing. I think if Tyus was actually allowed to exemplify what Bud claims to want to do, which is play this random style of basketball with free-flowing ball movement, and Tyus would be able to get into more on-ball pick and rolls, we're not going to see him commit 5 or 6 turnovers because we know he's highly precise in that situation. Now, that presents other issues because Tyus he's not a threat to score at the rim, and so he doesn't carry his own gravity when he's playing more heavily on the ball. And so we know why all of this stuff just like doesn't work. But I don't blame Tyus if they're just doing a dumbass offensive strategy, which is what they had yesterday. It was dumbass offensive strategy. It's not Tyus's fault if a few passes go astray.
Yeah.
His defense sucks, though. I mean, it's
13 turnovers combined by him and KD in that game, which is more than OKC or Boston averages this season. Which, look, I mean, they were playing with G Leaguers, so like they were trying to do what they could do to stay in that game, and KD, at least shooting the ball, did everything he could to keep him in it. But yeah, I mean, I agree. It's just there's the thing about Tyus, I think, that I have found to be a little bit frustrating recently is that the when Booker plays, the entirety of the offense is in his hands. He's the point guard. He's playing point guard on the team at this point, especially with Beal coming off the bench. So what is he there for then? He's there to stand off the ball and shoot wide open threes. Well, they have bigger guys who can do that. And they're both, honestly, better at basketball. Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal are better basketball players than Tyus Jones at this point. So put one of them in that role.
Who are both, at the very least, neutral defenders, and Tyus is just...
They're taller, so they're, like
a
Tyus...
much bigger negative, yeah.
Tyus is so small and so easily screened, and those guys aren't.
I want to represent the side of people who are, pushing back against the Tyus hate, or whatever you would call it online as well, because I do sympathize with that side, and I want to try and, represent, and hopefully I represented well, that this notion that for the past however many years, 3 years, 2 years... basically the KD era, right? There's always needed to be a scapegoat. And last year we scapegoated Drew Eubanks and we said, oh, how are we supposed to... It was two things, right? It was, how are we supposed to win with Drew Eubanks on the court? He's terrible. He's the worst backup center in the league. How are we supposed to win with no point guard? That's why they're turning it over all the time. They don't have a point guard. And then you go into this year... look at Nurkic. How are they supposed to win with Jusuf Nurkic? And now Nurkic is gone, so they need another scapegoat. And the scapegoat has become Tyus Jones. And I will say to people who feel that way, you're right, or at least partially right to feel that way. Because if there are still people who believe that Tyus Jones or Nurkic or Drew Eubanks or whoever, that your 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th best player on the roster is ever going to be the difference between the disaster that they are right now and a true championship contender, you're delusional. There is no 7th man who's the difference between out of the play-in and championship contender. So that's where we can still have the conversations about Book needs to be better. KD needs to be better. Beal needs to do anything at all. Team goes as far as
Ingles? He could have been the 7th man. We might be the 3rd seed if he was our
8 years in a row. Joe Ingles. I don't know if Zach Lowe ever wrote about Joe Ingles for 7th man of the year. Someone look that up. I have a feeling he did. But when we talk about Tyus, and this is why I do think the criticism is still fair, we're talking about like, okay, can we get back over 500? Can we like salvage the season a little bit? Can we like have a good time in the play-in? Maybe make a run at a playoff spot still? If you want to do those things, I've got the data to tell you that Tyus is not it, and they could, vastly improve their lineups by just kind of shelving him a little bit and giving other guys more minutes, and you might be better for it in both the short and long term. But it's not going to be a silver bullet. It's not going to fix this team and make them the 4th seed by season's end. That ship has obviously sailed. So, I do understand that there's a lot of nuance to it. I don't think Tyus, as a minimum contract, should be totally blamed for all of this team's flaws. But he also, he's been pretty bad.
And by the way,
that's all there is to it.
I want to point out the $50 million man that is skating by in a lot of these conversations because he's not even on the court, so you don't even think about him. But the solution is not to put Brad back into the starting lineup. I will continue to say that because there's just no data that shows that that's been good this year. It's been really bad. And admittedly, maybe it's better without Tyus. Like, I think there's a world where it probably is better without Tyus. But how much better, really? Because throughout the season, specifically when the big three is not on the floor and there's 2 guys on the floor and those 2 guys include Beal, so it's either Book and Beal or KD and Beal, they're getting demolished in those minutes. Just absolutely demolished.
You've got a few options, and I'm curious what you would prefer now, because the whole Bol thing makes this kind of interesting as a thought experiment, because he was totally not in the conversation a week ago, right? But now it's like you could keep Beal as your 6th man, And Tyus could still be your seventh man, right? He could still play 15 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
But your starting lineup could now be, if everyone's back post All-Star break, do you do Book, Grayson?
That's exactly what I do. Yep.
Okay, well, but I haven't finished. Would you do, because you could do this. You could do Book, Grayson, Royce, KD, Richards, which
That's
is
probably my
veterans.
preferred lineup, but it's just, it's got all the size problems. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still small,
Yeah.
but like those are veterans who
not
could
as small
shoot.
as Tyus. Yeah.
It's not as small as Tyus. It's still small. I think it won't be 27th in defensive rating in the NBA, which is what they currently are. It might be 20th, but it won't be 27th.
Hey, it's an improvement. And the offense would be better, I think.
Or the other thing you could do now, which is kind of interesting, is like Book, Grayson, or Royce, but probably Grayson, KD, Bol, Richards.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine with that too.
Or we didn't even bring up Ryan Dunn, who is clearly still struggling with his ankle injury, but was a starter until recently.
Also would be fine in the scenario where it's either like Book, Royce, Dunn, KD, Richards, or Book, Grayson, Dunn, KD, Richards too. Because at least you have a defender out there that's willing to try really hard, who I think when he was healthy before the injury, because Bud has hinted, for those who missed it, Bud has hinted that ankle injury is still bothering Dunn. And that's why his minutes, I think, have been lower. And honestly, truthfully, hate to say it this way, it's why he's been kind of bad lately. I mean, I love Ryan Dunn. I want him to play more. Has not been good in the last few games. Just someone who's struggling.
I don't think he's really made an impact on any game he's played in 2 weeks, basically since the ankle injury. So
yeah, exactly.
It's clearly he's playing through it, and we just have to hope that that plus the typical rookie wall that guys talk about and stuff that I think he
finds a way to push through, right? Yeah.
I think he needs the All-Star break as bad as any of the guys on
probably
the team right now.
Yeah, and he doesn't have one actually.
That's a great point. He's going to be there. Forgot about that.
One of the two Suns players who's going to be at All-Star Weekend, Ryan Dunn and KD. But yeah, I mean, happy with all of those. Honestly, I just think try something without Tyus. See if you could do a little better with a little more size. And look, if you're already turning it over into Book's hands, that's cool. And if you need someone to beat a press occasionally, trust Royce, trust Grayson. Yeah, there might be one or two more turnovers in those minutes, but honestly, if it just means like you're fighting every pick and roll 1-on-2, essentially, when Tyus is involved. And you can't do that. Like, it's just going to lead to the 27th best defense or whatever they have.
Yeah, and the other way to think about it is like, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to boil it all down to a math equation because obviously, it's harder than that. But like, all right, if you're turning it over like 3 more times, but you're also giving up like 3 fewer offensive rebounds and your half-court defense is just better, then that's a positive on the whole.
It was
right?
That's last year. You're describing last year's team.
Yeah.
A better defensive team that turned it over more, and they were better. They had more wins at this point of the season. They had a better net rating at this point of the season, and the defense was, 13th by the end of the year. So, like, there's a world where that team's better. Last year, I think, felt like a disaster, and this year, I think, gave us a new level of lows that it can reach when it comes to defense.
Well, just wait for next year.
Yeah.
The potentials are endless. It could go anywhere. Yeah.
I want to talk about Gambo. I want to talk about Gambo
because I don't usually do meta commentary on this podcast.
Well, I think it almost feels a little bit like a turning point in local discourse. And maybe I'm being dramatic in that in the way I'm framing that, but Gambo had a basketball take in that he initially called out KD and said that, KD, you want to prove that you're still great, then lead this team to the playoffs, make them win a series or whatever. Very typical radio guy thing, and probably us thing occasionally that we would do on this podcast as well. And he's very good at that, and I think he was right in some sense in that conversation. Then the Suns played the last game that Book played, which was, who was that? OKC, right? Yeah. And Book played okay. There was a lot of bad players on the court with him, I thought, and Book and KD played together and came back after that game and posted online about that there were times in that game where he was frustrated with Devin Booker for not looking to score more, not taking on the burden of scoring, and that the minutes without KD offensively could have been better. And then he had a back and forth with Shane Young. It was like a whole thing, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, that was a different thing. I'm just
funny,
confirming. Yeah. Okay. So look, here, from a distance, this stuff is kind of funny now because we're just at the point where everyone's frustrated, and so everyone's lashing out at each other. They're playing the blame
did what
game.
I said last week. I have no expectations anymore. The last 2 losses didn't hurt me at all.
Yeah.
You know, like
no,
I
honestly,
just found a way to let it go.
In a way, this has been the most zen since they did nothing, basically, at the trade deadline. I've been a lot more zen because I kind of have just accepted it and it washes over me now. Still, you know, you get in a mood. Like sometimes, I think I do this more than you. Sometimes it's fun to fight someone online. But I wouldn't have gone after
I
Gambo.
used to do it a lot.
I would not have gone after Gambo. Shane, that was not a smart decision, my friend. Anyway, okay.
Gambo's earned a lot of respect over his time here. Yeah,
you mentioned
you're getting in a fight with a million people.
You mentioned OKC, but that was a Memphis game that you're talking
Memphis.
about.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I couldn't remember.
Yeah, it was.
It's
a Memphis
already all
game.
blurring together in one big loss.
Well, it's not easy when also we took on the entire top half of the Western Conference in a week and lost to all of them. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's hard, but yeah, I mean, look, I think Gambo has legitimate criticism the same way I would say that a lot of people, myself included, have tried to have this criticism of Kevin Durant of, you know, if you want these guys to reach their ceiling, then there's always something they could be doing better. And, you know, in KD on this very episode, I said KD's too predictable. Well, Book is too passive. It's true. The way he's played for a long time, he has always wanted to make the right basketball play. And we saw him grow under a very strange environment in Phoenix where he had like 5 coaches in his first 5 years, always a different rotating cast of G Leaguer teammates. And throughout that process, he always has tried to make the right play and trust guys who are non-shooters to be shooters, guys who are non-roll threats to be rollers. And sometimes it bites you, especially once you get to a higher level of expectation, as we've seen in the past few years. Has it been like to this catastrophic level where we need to be framing Book versus KD as like the problem behind this team?
That's exactly what the point I wanted to make. Yeah.
No.
I just think it's ridiculous.
Both of them are still good. And both of them, when the team has both of them, they're still playing at like, what is it, a 50, 55 win pace or something, right? It's as
when
soon
they
as,
play without Brad, they're 9-2. When Book and KD play without Brad.
As I just said, they're 3-16 when one of them is out. So it's as soon as one of them is out that the entire thing collapses, which is why to frame it as it's Book's fault, it's KD's fault, is nonsense. Now, if you want to talk about the team hitting its ultimate ceiling and beating OKC or Boston or whoever in the finals, fine. No, I totally get it. That's a conversation you can have.
Yeah, at this point, neither of them. Yeah,
Book is not a top 5 player in the NBA. KD is not a top 5 player in the NBA. They're just not the way those guys are playing. And you know, when we signed up for this, I think the idea was if we want to win a championship, at least one of those guys has to be playing at that level. They're just
ideally
not.
Both. Yeah,
ideally both, but neither of them are there. But again, we're just trying to get back to 500. Like, we need to triage the issues here. And so get more size, bench Tyus Jones, get anything out of Bradley Beal. You know, these are the things that come before.
Or how about
Book needs to be more aggressive.
Get a guy or multiple guys who, when Book passes it out to the perimeter to a wide open shooter, it's not Ty Washington. You know, maybe have players who are able to play. Like, because I think it's kind of like, I actually don't think Gambo was totally wrong. I think Utah was a great example of Devin Booker fully understanding, because there was no Brad and no KD, the Utah game that Book played where he shot 30-something times, where he just understood, I'm the offense tonight. I have to shoot 30-plus times in order for this game to be a victory. And there are times, I think, where he could do that more for the Suns to be good. But one of the things that makes Devin Booker good is his ability to find other players and make the right play. And that's why he thrives on a team that has Mikal Bridges and Cameron Johnson out on the perimeter and DeAndre Ayton rolling to the rim. When the Suns have struggled the most, it is when he stops trusting those players when they're in those positions. Because when he stopped trusting DeAndre Ayton in the middle of the floor, that's when the team kind of fell apart. When he stopped, and both him and KD, if we're being honest, stopped trusting Jusuf Nurkic in the middle of the floor, you're taking away an entire dynamic from the team offense. And if you don't trust the shooters on the perimeter, yeah, maybe he shouldn't trust Ty Washington. I agree. I think it's a ridiculous thing to point out. Like, he's playing with G Leaguers and you're saying it's a him problem. Like, he's playing with G Leaguers. What are we really mad at here? Let's point our anger towards the right place overall. But I do think there are times where he's more passive. I think that was more of a problem in the first 2 months of the season, like in December and November, when I think he was actually turning down quite a bit of shots, and I think he's played better.
Well, at the time, he still had faith that the big three was going to, be a big three. I think that was kind of how I always justified that. Which was,
I think he was trying to play Bud style ball. Like they added more Monty back into the plays they're playing to get Devin Booker better shots. Truthfully, that's like what happened in the last month and a half. They added more Monty into the playbook.
You know what hit me like whiplash recently when I realized I was going through some stats? Is, obviously this era has been a disappointment. That's not a secret to anybody. And, way worse than the CP3 era teams. But like the year before CP3 came, the Bubble Suns, that team, they were 34 and 39, so they were under 500. But I recently went back and looked, like they had a positive net rating. They finished that
better
season,
net rating than this current team. Yeah.
That's what I realized. I was like, oh my God. We have a worse net rating than a team than the Ricky Rubio Kelly Oubre Suns, which is speaks
DeAndre Ayton.
Speaks exactly second year DeAndre Ayton.
Second year, that's right. Yeah.
Speaks exactly to what you're talking about. Like that team was constructed in a way that even though there was only one star in Book, sort of just made sense. He always had shooters on the wing.
It's when he's at his best.
Rubio was a pass-first point guard like of the mold of a Tyus Jones, but not nearly as useless offensively or defensively. He's much bigger than Tyus Jones. And then whenever Booker was coming off a screen, he had a legitimate role threat in Ayton. We were not yet at the point where we were really questioning Ayton's motor a ton at that time, or at least we were just hoping he would grow out of it. That was the season with the 25-game suspension. So, there was definitely, we were talking about it, but we were just hoping he would grow out of it. He didn't. And then on the wings, you always had shooters because you always had basically two of Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Kelly Oubre on the wings.
And
guys
Ricky
who could
Rubio,
not only shoot
shot
threes,
like
but could attack closeouts.
Ricky Rubio shot like 40% on catch and shoots that year, too. So a good season for him from the corner. Ricky Rubio was awesome that season. Shout out Ricky Rubio.
It's like not to, I'm not trying to pat James Jones too heavily on the back there because that was a team that was never going to go anywhere, even if they did make the playoffs after the bubble. Like they were never going to win anything. But it's more so just a demonstration of how low we've fallen that we're worse than that team. That's how much this doesn't work. We are worse than that team.
When both KD and Devin Booker play, the offense is 118.4 offensive rating. Would you be surprised to know that when one of them on and the other one is off, that the offense is better when Book's on and KD's off? Would that surprise you based on Gambo's take? Yeah. When Book's on, KD's off, the offense is a 114 offensive rating. When KD is on but Book is off, the offense is a 112.9. So it's like a 1 point difference. But I was curious about that and looking it up because I'm like, is the offense really worse when Book's on the floor and KD's? Here's what's really worse. The defense is worse, a lot worse when KD's off the floor. And, that's really obvious as to why. There's only one guy who is like a forward-sized player on this team that plays, and it's Kevin Durant. When he's off the team, the defense sucks when he's not on the court. It's just awful because there's just nobody that can do that. Maybe Bol will help mitigate some of that if he plays some minutes without KD on the floor. I think there's a reason they put him in the starting lineup because I think they like the idea of Richards, KD, and Bol together for all of that length together. But maybe if he finds ways to be effective even outside of the time that KD's on the floor, that defensive rating can go up. But to me, like, it's one of the problems. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think maybe they would have a few more wins if Booker shot more in the first few months of the season. I don't think it's a problem right now. And it could be in individual games. Of course it could be. Anything could be a problem with this team in individual games. Mention the $50 million anchor again, Brad, who just takes no criticism on this team at all. I mean, of course, people are very mean to him online and apparently at games too, but like we're talking about 3 stars on this team and we focus on the 2 that are playing and playing well. There's one that doesn't play, and when he does play, he's playing really terribly. He sinks every lineup he's in. And like it just should be mentioned at least when having this conversation.
Well, that Brad has been a complete disappointment. Handicap. Yeah, that's what it is. We're gonna get to the summer and we're gonna have to reevaluate. Like, I don't want to frame it as pushing Brad out of town. Like bullying him out of town is not the goal exactly.
He doesn't want to come off the bench.
But yeah,
he knows it doesn't work.
Well, and here's the thing. Like, it's one thing to be approached in February about, hey, we want to uproot your family.
Exactly.
That's the middle. That's the middle of the school year. Everyone knows Phoenix is nice in the winter. He doesn't want to do that. Totally makes sense. And for the next 2 years, no one can force him to go anywhere. If he truly wants this, if this is truly what he wants, this horrible fit where no one's ever really going to embrace him probably like he wants, if he wants to do it for another 2 years, he can. But I just have to wonder if, they actually do approach him in the summer and say, hey, let's work to get you somewhere where you're really wanted. That maybe it starts a conversation again and you might have a chance at finding a team. I don't know.
It's really the
you
challenge
have to try.
is the other team. There's also like less time on his contract, only 2 years instead of this year plus 2 years. It is what it is. It's the other team wanting him. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge in that case. One quick question for you, just out of curiosity, on a scale of 1 to 10, how surprised would you be if Bud was fired over the All-Star break?
Who would take over as coach? Fizdale?
One of them.
Just
I don't know.
an interim?
Just one of them, yeah.
So I guess in terms of how surprised I would be, I'll go with a 4 or 5 because I certainly think like it's not unprecedented. They're playing really poorly. It would just be such a horrible look, and I don't want it to happen whatsoever. I know people are starting to, they're playing the blame game again, and some of that goes at Bud, too, for rotations that
I think
that
he's been kind of bad, actually. Yeah.
You can have that opinion. That's fine, but, like, dude, we can't.
I know.
We can't do it again.
I'm just saying
we can't do it again.
It's like it's all of a piece, right? It's all together. Nobody is without blame in this scenario. I think the front office has blame, and we were happy about a lot of the moves they made, but they still deserve blame. Hindsight's 20/20. The players deserve blame, but I don't think he's been great either. I think
Ishbia. Here's what I would say.
Tyus Jones, like it's just a lot.
If they fire Bud after, let's say, this season, they're not going to do it at the All-Star break. Let's say
I'd be like at an 8 or 9 in surprise for that. By the way.
Yeah,
like I'm not saying it's.
No, I actually would be too. I'll amend
yeah.
mine. I would say like 7 or 8 if they did it at the All-Star break. 5 if they did it at the end of the season. Matt Ishbia is motivated to not look like a joke, and I'm not sure I can think of many other things he could do that would make him look like more of a joke than firing another coach this soon. I think if they decided to do that, the next thing that would happen is basically putting out the hit piece on James Jones and say it was all his idea and he's gone too. And I think it's more justifiable. I don't think it's justifiable at all, but if you're Matt Ishbia and you wanted to do this, it's more justifiable if you use it as an excuse to like clean the entire house than if you just say another new coach is going to fix it. We hired 2 championship coaches in 2 years. They both sucked. Let's get a third one.
Yeah. Or I don't know what they would do. Like, who's next on the list? Is there a championship coach that's currently not employed?
I don't know,
Somebody
man.
who won a championship in the
people
last
always say
5-10 years?
People always say there's only 30 jobs and all that, but like
Nick Nurse might be available.
Would anyone really want that job?
I don't know. It
that
depends
job,
on what the team looks like, honestly.
That would suck.
Yeah.
That would suck.
Welcome back, Igor Kokoshkov.
I don't think he'd want it.
No.
I don't think he'd want it at all.
All-Star Weekend starts tomorrow. We're recording this Thursday night. I don't know. Are you looking forward to it at all? I'm not really. I don't know. I'm just like, part of me is
excited
like,
for Mac McLung at the slam dunk contest again. Let's go. Look, I'm mostly excited because here's the truth. I think Dunn, because he's dealing with this ankle thing, is going to play like 5 minutes in the rookie sophomore showcase, whatever they call it these days, Rising Stars game. And so I'm mostly looking forward to just the All-Star game on Sunday. But I will watch everything.
It's like a tournament.
That's true. Yeah, no, I actually think that format will be kind of interesting.
I agree. Yeah,
I'm
kind of looking forward to. Yeah,
I will watch Saturday night with an open mind. I know everyone's just going to be clowning on it on social media, no matter what happens. But
yeah, I watch it every year. Who am I kidding? Yeah,
let's hope for the best.
And then I'm going to watch SNL 50. I'm going to be one of those guys. I will say we will create some sort of Patreon content over this weekend, so we'll have time to talk about some of this weekend. Obviously, Ryan Dunn's going to be in it, so if he plays, we're going to want to talk about it. And, of course, we'll give our thoughts on All-Star Weekend in general going forward for this podcast. But we got a break. No Suns games for about a week here. So we're going to be able to talk a little bit about the rest of the league, and who knows what storyline pops up around the Suns between now and then, but we'll be here to cover it. Otherwise, obviously, Suns basketball a week from now. Anything else before we go, Sam?
No, you got a week, like you said. So go be with your family.
Yeah.
Start a new hobby. Go on a hike. Cater to your mental health. Just, wherever's your happy place. Because I know Suns basketball is not your happy place.
Yeah,
go find your happy place.
Yeah.
We'll see you in a week.
Thanks, everyone.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.